CPCU Champion Hour number 11. We are interviewing Abi Potter Clough and talking about insurance professionals reinventing themselves. Let's do it.
Here we go.
We're talking about a lot of these things. We're talking about how to mentor.
File that under only the best decisions are made after midnight.
Right. That's right.
Your network is your net worth. Connect with someone.
Nailed it. Heather with the dynamite intro there. That's number 2 now for Heather. We have yet to get Precious in the batter's box on that one. I don't know.
I'm warming up. I'll get there.
We might have to I don't know, dig up some dirt on Precious to get her to do it.
Just a little bit of arm twisting. Don't break it. Just twist it.
Yeah. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is the CPCU Champion Hour. We are brought to you by the Institutes, the CPCU Society, and volunteers from the CPCU Society. Where the heck is my banner? My banner's right here. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Hit the notification bell. Definitely participate in trivia. We'll have trivia later so that you can throw your comments down below. And if we hit on anything that you would like to talk more about, if it resonated with you or anything like that, please also participate in the comments. We would love to have a dialogue with you and share it out there on social media and see what others in your network have to say about it. So we have a really interesting show today. We are coming off of a series of shows where we've been talking about more kind of like, we talked about tech. We talked about the specifics of the society and where we've come from or where we're going and stuff like that. This is going to be more of on the kind of personal, I guess, developmental side, which I'm really happy to be talking about. It is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I know you too as well. And we're going to be talking about basically reinventing yourself. Now I'm thinking about dodgeball and the Globo Gym owner going, "I made myself." But so to that end, we do have Abi Potter Clough with us for this episode. All right, so we had a little bit of a lull in terms of episodes coming out, and that is solely my fault, or at least it's my computer's fault, because in the midst of the darkest graphics card economic winter in history, my computer decided that the graphics card was not needed anymore, and so it stopped working. I had to buy one. Pretty much I had to, take out a mortgage and give my firstborn child over as collateral in order to get a graphics card. But so we are back up and running, and we have the edited episodes are already starting to flow, and you're already watching them. But obviously it was extremely frustrating. There was a lot of anxiety. So for our icebreaker for this episode, I wanted to ask you two, when you have those moments of just like utter frustration and things aren't going right and there's anxiety and stuff that all kind of comes with it, what is your escape, or what is your method for being able to deal with that and kind of like vent and get it away and then kind of like reset and go back after it? What is that, process look like? I'll give it to you, Precious, first, because you're moving right now, or you have been moving. I would imagine there's a lot of anxiety associated with that. So what's your go-to in terms of kind of de-stressing?
So working from home means I can get up and change my scenery whenever necessary. And so when the computer's not working, when it's glitching, when there's errors, then usually my first room of choice is the kitchen. I'll get in there and it's time to meal prep. So my family has been the beneficiary of my stressful days because they usually end up in, activities like peeling potatoes or chopping carrots. And that means dinner's going to be great because mom had a horrible day at work. And then my second room of choice is like the old fashioned, I'm just going to wash this day out of my hair. So I take showers in random parts of the day. So that's the one thing that because that is where all of my like Zen eucalyptus kind of kicks in. And I just reset. I just start there. It's like the equivalent of getting out of bed again, and trying the day again. So if I'm ever like at extended lunch, chances are there's either, a pot roast on the way or a shower underway. So
yeah.
you can only get away with at home.
Now I know only stop by on the days where Precious is having a bad day for lunch. What you got, Heather?
Yeah, I would say during certain times of the year where I live, one of my favorite places to go is my back porch. I do have a fire pit out there, so when I'm in that in between time of the year, which isn't right now, by the way, because it's -15 up here right now, but I'll go out on my back porch. The wind is kind of moving, and I have wind chimes out there and everything. And at that time of year, and that just kind of brings that sense of calm and peace to me. Just being in that place. And then I would say as well, like obviously I'm a big texter, so I'll just text a friend to that'll reconnect with, maybe that I haven't talked to in a while via text or whatever, and just say, and I try to reach out and encourage them, because encouraging them encourages me. It flips my mood whenever I remind myself to be grateful about things. So
I love that.
That's awesome.
I love that. That's like you're turning that negative into a positive, not just for yourself, but also someone else. I love that. That's awesome. I'm a big take a drive kind of person. I love driving. My wife and I get along very well because she can't stand driving long distances. I can drive for hours and hours and hours. So when it all feels like it's coming down on me, I will take a long drive and shut the phone off, or at least I'm just using the phone for, music or a podcast or something like that to just kind of like chill out. It is something I do miss from, pre-COVID world in terms of, commutes and whatnot, because that was kind of a little moment of zen every single day, at least most days. So yeah, but a good drive, the open road, especially if it's like a day where you can put the window down and get some fresh air and stuff like that, always kind of helps me out a little bit, kind of reset the clock. So, all right. We have a full pack show. So we have all of our segments lined up. We are going to kick it off with the Insurance News Minute with our now prolific lead-in person at the top of every single show.
we have a couple of news articles of the week or of the day at the time that we were doing this that I thought we would throw out to our community out there. This one struck me as incredibly interesting. Did you know that the world's first crypto mortgage has been sold now? A company called Milo. It's a fintech company with offices in Miami and some principals that are based overseas, announced that they're now offering what appears to be that first crypto-based mortgage. And to tie this back to insurance, homeowners, insurers really don't hate it. They don't have a problem with it. They really don't care how the mortgage is going to be paid or how that is going to happen. They're really only concerned, obviously, with the insured value of the property, and that's not going to change because of crypto valuation changes. But this is brand new territory that we are stepping into with that world's first crypto mortgage out there. The other insurance news minute of the week we'd like to share with you is natural disasters. Last year in 2021 were massive. We had in 2021 natural disaster losses of over $343 billion. According to a report by Aon, their Weather, Climate, and Catastrophe Insight report, only 38% of that $343 billion worth of natural disasters was covered. Such a tiny percentage, and just goes to show how in so many different markets out there, insurance is not available for a lot of these losses that are happening. The U.S. obviously boasts the most robust insurance industry in the world. We did account for 71% of the global insured losses. The rest of the world didn't do too well. There were over 50 individual billion-dollar economic loss events in 2021. And when I think about that, those are just staggering numbers in my mind. It was the fourth highest year on record, with only 20 of the events reaching the billion-dollar insured threshold. But that in 2020, the year before, just for context, there were $55 billion events, which was that third highest on record. So 2021 stacked up right next to 2020. There was this article was out there on the Insurance Journal, if anybody'd like to check it out. But obviously, we are living in a world where major natural disasters and the uninsured factor of them is not improving over time. And this is something that we, as insurance professionals, are obviously very passionate about, making sure that people are insured in this world.
So what's your first reaction, Precious, when you hear either one of those? I'll allow you to hit either one of those or both of them combined, if you can find a common thread, which there might be.
Yeah, so when I hear numbers like that, I immediately think, and thank you, Heather, for kind of calling that out. Like, has there been an uptick in frequency, or is there an uptick in severity, right? And so you're looking and seeing, is it that we're having more events come down the pike that are triggering these, or that the economic impact of these is greater and greater? And so having such a small percentage of those that are covered by insurance impacts society at large. Those are businesses that won't reopen. Those are homes that won't be rebuilt. Those are things that are devastating to communities and households and all of the above. And so thinking about the way that we insure, because some of these things, and again, I haven't read the full context of the article, but I think about certain properties, for example, where there may be some the unique challenges, right? And so are people opting out of insurance? Do they not have access to markets? Is it because of underwriting reasons that's prohibiting, different types of coverage from being secured? Because ultimately, if we can derive a rate, which is really what insurance is all about, and find a price, that matches the exposure and the risk, then, this is just one of those signs that maybe this is an opportunity for us as an industry to look into, ways of making insurance, even if it's not, there's layers to this, right? So even if there's a degree that could be insured, if it's not the entire risk, but that's just such a small drop in the bucket. So that's just, when I hear that, again, my knee-jerk reaction is the devastation that's left behind. Because if it's the inaffordability of premiums, how do you recover, if you have to shoulder 100% of that loss?
Yeah. The juxtaposition between those two is also really interesting. So in the numbers about the covered losses, a lot of the kind of like buckets of the lowest percentage of coverage happened in developing nations, or nations like China, which are a gigantic potential market, but just insurance penetration isn't anywhere close to what it is in, say, the industrialized world or in the United States, in the Western world. And so I love the juxtaposition between those two, because crypto is also one of those technologies that promises or could promise to bring a lot of those people that are uninsured or underinsured, potential actors or people within the insurance ecosystem, bring them in, because it is digital, it is mobile, so it's able to accommodate a wide range, especially when it comes to things like, say, microinsurance and stuff like that. I think some of the larger uninsured cases in here had to do with famine or at least drought, as well as some other kind of weather events that, you know, you could develop microinsurance solutions for and use crypto as a background for it with smart contracts attached to it. That would also kind of streamline the claims process. So really interesting. What was really kind of your first thought, Heather, when you kind of like, pulled up either one of those articles? What was kind of like your visceral response to them?
Yeah, my visceral response is obviously the volatility of weather that we have today is incredible. And I, my another response that I had was what Precious said. Is it frequency? Is it severity? I think it's a combination of both. We all know about California wildfires, the wildfire exposure that's there, the climate change aspects that are associated with that as well. But calling back to what you said, Matt, I I think that I always see this as an opportunity. I know it, and when I talk to my students in my class and I say risk is really an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to step into marketplaces, like you talked about with microinsurance and supporting that with crypto. There are places in the world where the accessibility of insurance is not there, and it's our duty as advocates for the industry to step forward and say, how can this be done? How can this be accomplished? Because we know what this looks like for people when they experience it. Having worked claims for many, many years, I have seen firsthand the absolute devastation that people go through with these catastrophic losses. And then you also, on the flip side of that, I'm generally dealing with people who are insured, but you have a large percentage of people who are out there who don't have insurance or are not accessing insurance. So I think it's a wide open road for us to be able to see where insurance can go to better serve the underserved marketplaces that are out there.
I love that. I love that thread because the story continues to play out, right? Like it's something that is yet to be determined or may never be determined, because it's just this iterative process of kind of moving forward and helping the next and the next and the next. And so I love that aspect of it. And yeah, kind of makes me think that, like, if I was a claims adjuster, like something in the back of my head when you have a homeowner who's like, what do you mean you're going to pay me only $300 from that? And you'd be like, well, you could be a rice farmer in the middle of China and not have any insurance and go without any food. So how would you like that? Like,
Never took that tactic.
I think the customer service survey at the end of that wouldn't go too well. All right. So in that vein, we actually have the trivia question this week has to do with catastrophic loss. And so we're going to tick that one off, and then we are going to cover the events coming up here in the near future, and then we're going to bring Abi on. So with that, we have the trivia question of the week. As always, I am going to use this opportunity to ask everyone to, again, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. And when I ask the question, make sure to put your answers in the comments below, because if you are correct, we will get one of you some CPCU Society swag. So definitely participate in trivia. And just to prove my point, we actually have a backlog of winners. So I get to announce a multitude of people here that are winners of some swag if I can get the correct window up. So here we are. Oh, shoot. I have it like in -3 font. All right, let's make this work. Okay, so we had 3 questions in prior episodes that we have winners for. Ruthie Phillips won the question about mentorship programs in the Fortune 500. I believe up to 3/4 of those companies have a formal mentorship program. Only about a third, it was in between 33 and 37% of actual professionals in those companies take advantage of that program and have a formal mentor that they are working with at present. So definitely need to improve the actual utilization of those programs in the Fortune 500 and throughout most industries. So Ruthie won on that one. The next one we had was Mary Calmer answered the 5 new levels of CPCU membership correctly. They are the student level, pathways member, CPCU professional member, academic member, and the post-career membership levels. So Mary Calmer won on that one. And then Jay Vaden answered correctly the amount in anticipated of InsurTech investment money in 2021 was anticipated at $10 billion. Obviously, we're still waiting for the final receipts to come in on that one, but that was the ballpark that we were in, and Jay came up with the right answer on that one. So what are we talking about today? We are going to continue talking about catastrophic losses. We prior talked about uncovered loss and things like that. We're actually going to talk about the frequency of catastrophic loss with the trivia question. So I'll give you some background, and then I have I'll give you a range of answers here. All right. So over the last, say, 31 years, there's been pretty extensive tracking of catastrophic losses, especially those that exceed $1 billion. This I'm taking from the actual NOAA website. So if you want to cheat, you can check out NOAA and figure out the statistic, or you can take a shot at it on your own. But from 1980 to 2021, the annual average of these events that exceeded $1 billion from weather or climate disaster averaged 7.4 events per year. But that has been much more frequent over the last 4 years. And so the question this week is, what is the average number of events of losses in excess of $1 billion, climate or weather related, for the last 4 years, the annual average? So is it, remember, 7.4 per year over the last 31. So is it 10? Is it 15? Is it 17? Or is it 20? 10, 15, 17, or 20? And put your answers in the comments below, and we will see who our winner of some swag is. Did I forget anything with our trivia? I think I had like a lot there. Like, that's the longest trivia question of the week I think I'll do for a while. We had to go around a corner to get there.
Yeah.
But we made it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Not to get too political. We don't try and get too political, but look, numbers are numbers, right? Sometimes they can lie and be manipulated and stuff like that. But just from seeing that, like, regardless of what the answer is, we know the frequency is increasing over the last 4 years. And so whether you want to attribute it to climate change, basically the way that we organize ourselves, I'll say, in terms of like community building, and how we do a very poor job of dealing with water runoff and stuff like that, as well as a number of other, socioeconomic factors that are out there. There's definitely things that are causing higher frequency of high severity losses. So to your question earlier, Precious, yeah, like I think it's yes and yes, right? Like the numbers are getting bigger in terms of the frequency, and they're also getting bigger in terms of the actual dollars associated with those losses. And so we definitely have to just be smarter, I think, in a lot of cases with this stuff. But definitely looking forward to seeing what some people answer on that. All right. I think I've beat that horse enough. We have some awesome events coming up here in March, and I want to set the table for you, Precious, to talk about those events, one webinar and one awesome conference that are coming up. So without further ado, talking about upcoming events, this is Precious.
So events are one of the benefits that we have as members of the CPCU Society. And so whether they're local events that are hosted by the chapters where we live, or they're events that are put on a virtual basis that we can all tap into, it is very important to keep your eye on the things that are coming down the pike so that you don't miss out. There's lots of conversations that are happening around various parts of our industry. So whether that is your wheelhouse, and you're looking to sharpen your tools, or you're curious about something, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. So the first event that we have coming up in the month of March is the registration is now open for the Reinsurance and Excess Surplus Lines Symposium. So I know that's a mouthful, but this is really spot on, especially in the same vein of talking about catastrophes and losses. We understand that we have admitted markets for the more vanilla fare, but this excess and surplus market exists for those risks that are a little bit harder to quantify, to underwrite, and to ultimately insure. And so there are 2 action-packed days. The itinerary is online and available for you to tap into and understand the breadth of subjects that are going to be discussed. And so the conference is open. It is open to members. So again, the benefit of membership is that you get a steep discount to register for these sort of events. So whether you again, are deeply involved in this piece of the industry, or if this is something that you're curious about, definitely take advantage of these 2 days of the lineup. Again, is very solid so that you can understand how risks are insured around the country and around the world. The second thing that I want to bring your attention to are the webinar series that are available. And so in March, we have again, someone who is very closely tied to the Dallas chapter, so very proud of Dallas, of course, but Rob Olson is going to be presenting a webinar on error blindness and ethical fading. And so this is something that Rob has a background in philosophy, and so he really tackles this from an angle maybe that you haven't considered or been part of a discussion like this. And so the webinars are free for CPCU Society members. So again, this is another virtual opportunity. So regardless of where you are within the nation, within the world, you have access to tap in and hear thought leaders such as Rob talk about how these sort of blurred lines present a danger to our industry. And so what are some of the things that we can do to really level set, to centralize ourselves so that we are operating in a way that draws credit to our profession, right? Because that is what we've agreed to as CPCUs. So super excited about both of these events coming up. Definitely check them out and keep your eye on the websites as well as Interact to see the different things that are coming out and are available, even some of the chapter events that are virtual and many of those free of charge. So those are the events that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
I love that at the top of Rob's, I guess, abstract or summary for it, he has a quote from Moliere, like a French writer from the 17th century leads off the top of the summary of the webinar. That just goes to show you like how I just kind of eclectic, right? Like the world of insurance is, and the fact that we have someone who's ingrained in philosophy and ethics, who also apparently is a fan of 17th century French writers.
You've never heard it from this perspective if you've never heard Rob speak. Yeah,
so. You were offline, we were talking about it, and you were like, man, he was like, people are like gung-ho about certain things. Like, this is his wheelhouse, man. Yeah. This is like what he does. So you're getting the A team when it comes to that kind of event. Have you, Heather, have you ever done anything? I've never done anything in the reinsurance. I've placed excess and surplus lines policies before, but I've never worked on the other side of the counter, so to speak. Do you have any pedigree in that?
I don't, but I'm also involved in NAMIC, obviously, and so obviously I have a lot of connection to like individuals that work for Gen Re and Mutual Re and various other reinsurance companies. So I always pick their brain when I go to NAMIC conferences because they're just a wealth of knowledge most of the time around it. But I have never dabbled in that world and never really had any experience around it. I vaguely remember learning about reinsurance with my CPCU and understanding the stacking and the building. And I do teach a little bit about reinsurance in my class for my students. I very, very basic level because reinsurance can get really complicated in the different types that are there. So
yeah, I think you'll appreciate this one, Precious. Like from my perspective, at least as a broker, when I'm sitting there talking to someone and they're like, well, we could place this risk, but then we have to go get FAC and there's a certain carve out for it and there's a separate price. I'm like, look, can you just tell me what the limits are and how much it costs? Like, I don't care what you have to do on the back end. Like, just make it work, right? Like, am I alone in that?
There is a science. It definitely is. And it was funny as Heather was talking about that. I know that in my CPCU journey, like that was one of the like thorns in my side, just wrapping my mind around in 520 talking about insurance operations. I underestimated how much of that would be reinsurance centric and understanding the difference between, like you said, the treaty stuff, the facultative stuff, just what triggers what, how you build that. But again, that's very much ingrained in the excess and surplus, because especially when you go to Lloyd's and you got to kind of figure out what syndicates are taking what part of what, and where all that, is tying back to and comes from. I mean, it's a whole thing. So yeah, again, this is one of those opportunities that if you're just mildly familiar or even curious, reinsurance curious, is that a thing? I don't know. This is your place where you can go and sit in where these conversations are happening.
It definitely sounds like I needed to, like, at least carve out a little time to take a walk on the wild side here and figure out what's going on behind
That's off a book, man. You can just go back through it. Just because it's a test doesn't mean we can't reread it and then catch up, right? Because the industry is doing awesome things in all of these areas. So yeah, and that's what I love about this, right? We get to, this is our tribe. We get to nerd out together on stuff. Where are you going to find a group of other folks that are like really chomping at the bits to figure out reinsurance? So lean into it, man.
Yeah. Yes, most definitely. All right. So that being said, we have a fantastic guest. We're going to transition a little bit, but she actually has done some writing as far as kind of some of the conferences that are out there talking about, dabbling in different areas and kind of getting a taste of the broader insurance industry. But we have a fantastic CPCU Champion profile, and Abi is like the epitome of CPCU Champion because she is out there just kind of like, living it, and she wears it like a badge of honor, which is what most of us do, but she does it in such a way that she's like, I mean, she is totally ingrained in it. She's not just, like an underwriter who also has their CPCU. She's someone who's out there working as a change management author, a thought leader, as well as someone I think who's doing some consulting and stuff like that. And she's doing it because she had her CPCU and because of the network development and the career development it gave for her. So without further ado, this is our profile this week of Abi Potter Clough.
Down here, you're like, oh, is daylight savings happening? Okay, we buy Christmas presents. Okay, we're getting those those seasonal reminders. Like the stores have. Where were we? We were somewhere this weekend shopping, and there was a display of fall things, like pumpkins and witches and pumpkin spice latte signs and things like that. And you're like, really? Okay, I guess it's gonna be fall. Because you're gonna still be in shorts and a t-shirt. When we trick-or-treated as kids, you would be in your jacket over your Halloween costume. It's ruining it, right? You're in boots and you have to wear a turtleneck under your costume, and it's awful. And down here, kids are having pool parties for Halloween, and you're like, oh, it's so weird. So those things still blows my mind. So it's good.
I would like to welcome Abi Potter Clough, not a returning guest to CPCU Champion Hour, but definitely a returning guest to the shows that we've been putting on for the last year and a half, give or take. And so she may look familiar to you. If you are not familiar with Abi, I want to give you a couple of minutes just as a quick lead in. Who are you and what do you do, and why should people know you?
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Like Matt said, my name is Abi. I'm a CPCU, and I've been a CPCU since 2013. And I volunteer with this society. So I'm involved with the International Insurance Interest Group, otherwise known as 3IG. I'm their immediate past chair. And I'm also their representative on the publications committee now. So for folks who are looking to get their stuff published and insights in some of our other really cool publications, I'm your girl. And in my day job, I'm actually also a writer. I write about insurance and leadership topics. I'm a freelancer, so I write for a lot of different publications and different companies, some insurtechs and some startups, agents, and brokers, just a lot of folks in the industry doing really, really cool things out there. So I'm really lucky to be involved at that level. I also do some speaking for industry events, so different CPCU or other insurance events, mostly talking about leadership topics, sometimes insurance, but usually leadership, goal setting, branding, and change management type topics.
Awesome. And so really quickly, what events will you be at in the near future? Industry level events that people could come and meet with you. And also, I'm going to throw the book up on the screen if I can make the tech work here. Hopefully, everyone can see that. Life After Leaping In. So yeah, what events will you be at so people could actually come and meet you and kind of fangirl and fanboy over you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for sharing the book. I'll be in, I'm so happy that we'll be in live events a bit this year. I'll be in at RIMS, which is in San Francisco in mid-April. I know a lot of folks will be at that one. I'm also going to be at the in Chicago in late April is the Reuters Connected Insurance and AI event. And then it's actually the same week as the CPCU Leadership Summit. So I'll be going right from that event over to Las Vegas for the Leadership Summit event, which is open to any industry professional who wants leadership training. So that will be a pretty awesome time and place for an event to get back together after a couple of years. So I'll have copies of the book everywhere I go and my pink Sharpie so I can sign it for you.
That should be an interesting you're going to experience Chicago in April and then Las Vegas in April.
I know. Seriously, the only other time I've been to Chicago was in April and there was a blizzard. So yeah. I'm not, I'm afraid, guys. Yeah.
And I think you were saying, Heather, NAMIC. When is NAMIC? Is it March or April?
NAMIC's coming up in March, and several of us CPCUs will, Tracy Adadje and Mike Caselny are speaking at that particular event. So, and I'm on the committee for planning it. So we will all be up there together, CPCU reunions. Yeah,
that'll be Chicago in March. And then I think I'm the only one here who will have not visited Chicago. If Abby, if you haven't been or you've already been, I've never been to Chicago, but you spent some time up there too, Precious, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll say from 2017 to 2019, I was probably up there every 4 to 6 weeks because the company I worked for, that was home office. And so meetings, trainings. And so it was funny, me being a Texas girl, I had like a little cubby where I kept my winter stuff up there because there's no point in like lugging it back and forth. And certain essentials that I needed only for snow areas, like, my duck boots, like my heavy coat. So I'd fly in, I'm like, okay, no one bother my stuff. This is like my little locker up at the office. But oh yeah, good times. I could tell you exactly. I would go to Midway, catch an Uber. I stayed at the same hotel because we were in the Loop. So yeah, I kind of did some time in Chicago. Beautiful city.
It looks like a lovely city. I just don't want a foot of snow again this time.
You did so much to get away from the snow and to go right back.
I did. I'm not ready for it.
Oh, we lost audio on you, Matt.
We did.
Let me try that. Is that working now?
Yes.
Oh, hey, look at that.
There you are.
Slight technical difficulties. So I was saying a shameless plug for our interview with Mike Kay. We were kind of talking about 2022 resolutions, though he doesn't like to call them resolutions. But what was brought up in there is he's a big Chicago guy too. And Chicago is the birthplace of the CPCU Society. So that was a little trivia that we kind of put the screws to him on during that episode. So if you haven't seen that episode, definitely check it out. But
I don't think I knew that about it being about Chicago being the birthplace. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
First chapter. Yep. Yeah. So just an interesting little tidbit. All right. So let's kind of transition to talking about you, Abby, and kind of the path that you've been on, and you made a very deliberate move in your career that I think a lot of people might shy away from, might not even think about. And that is something that kind of either was the catalyst for or some of the subject matter for your book. And I want to make sure that we're kind of like staying consistent, because in this episode we're talking about the potential evolution that people can go through within their career, right? And not just talking about those stepwise moves that they might take within the corporate ladder or within an organization, but talking about those moments in time where it's like, I mean, most of us collectively were forced into some of those changes within the last 2 years because of COVID world. And you, luckily enough, had already started your journey down that path, a year or a couple of years ahead. And so you were ahead of the game, as opposed to most all of us who were kind of like scrambling to catch up if we got caught in that wave. Before I kind of like hand it to Heather and Precious to kind of like pelt you with questions, my question to you would be, what was the real catalyst for you wanting to make this, not just this kind of like, small change in your life professionally, but this kind of large leap, so to speak?
It was, and honestly, this might just sound sort of trite or cliched, but like, it was like, I got to the point in my life where I couldn't just stay in one place anymore. I couldn't stay complacent anymore. I just couldn't do it. Like my mind was going crazy. Like I was too like stuck in what I was doing. And it just became like every day was the same routine. And it just kind of hit me that like, my life could just look the same in a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I could just keep going down that same path. And I mean, it wasn't like a bad life or anything like that. It just wasn't everything that I wanted. When you sit down at night and you dream about what you want out of life, that wasn't everything. And I was like, there's got to be more. And those thoughts just became more and more and more. And I realized I had to take action with it. So yeah. And then other things happened, like getting laid off. It sort of like pushed me off that edge to leap even more. But yeah, it was really just a matter of figuring out that it was time for me.
So I lied. I have one more question before I throw it to Heather or Precious.
Sure.
You'd mentioned that there was, kind of a forced change involved there, or at least, some change that was introduced not by you, but by your former employer. Did that hit you as hard as it would have had you not been kind of contemplating this move? Or was it still something where you kind of like mourn that loss, like, moving into this new direction? I know like those moments of big change, they can be liberating, but they can also be scary or maybe even extremely emotional. How did that affect you?
Oh God, all of those things, all of them. I mean, I had been at my company for 15 years. Like I loved my company, and so it did come out of left field for me. So of course I had to mourn that and to feel like all of those emotions of the shock and the grief and the sadness and and it's like that whole range of things that you feel like kind of immediately kind of hitting you like a wave, right? But then as you start to kind of get past some of that initial stuff, I realized like, okay, here's this amazing opportunity that I'll probably never have again with, leaving a company after 15 years and, the way that they take care of you at that point, timed along with my relocation, along with the sale of my house in New York, along with all these other like just exciting like life starts. It kind of all felt like, oh my gosh, if I don't take this opportunity, like what am I doing? I need to leap into this. I'm not going to have that kind of opportunity again. So yeah, it's terrifying, but then you realize that from change comes opportunity that wouldn't have been there before. So getting laid off led to the opportunity that I had then to start my company, which has been amazing. So is all a balance, and you feel all those emotions in 5 minutes, and it keeps like a roller coaster happening over and over and over again. And I don't sleep much, but
Yeah, I feel you. That can be an extremely tough emotional hurdle to get past, just trying to resolve all of that going on, that storm that's happening,
Yeah.
All right.
And you have to feel it all. I mean, that's normal, right? Like if you guys, maybe have been laid off or had a position change or something on you, the feeling. We've all been through it in our industry,
Definitely. All right. I will shut up. Heather, take first crack here.
Yeah, Abby, you talk about those range of emotions that people deal with when they're going through one of those major life shifts or major life changes. And you know, it is overwhelming at times because you get like pelted with all of them at once, and you're like, how do I process all of this and then still continue a path to move forward? So what advice do you have to people who might be going through something like that, and how they can start to step one foot in front of another to take action towards the change that they're wanting to make in their life?
Yeah, definitely. It is overwhelming. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you put it in a really great way, Heather. It's that take one step forward, right? When you can't see the path forward, maybe you can see the first couple steps on the path. So if you can do something to take action, for starters, you're going to feel a lot better, right? Taking action always feels better than inaction. Even if you just can't make it for a full workout and you go for that 5-minute walk around the block, you feel better. And so doing something to move yourself forward, even if it's the easiest thing on your to-do list, is going to make you feel a little bit better about it. So I think that's a great first step. And I think also one thing that's always helped me is just remembering that making progress is important, right? Progress isn't perfection. It doesn't have to be amazing, right? It can be getting out of bed. It can be, packing one box. When I was relocating, I had so much stuff and so many things to do around the house that weren't any fun, like painting and cleaning, and so much cleaning. And, it's just kind of okay if I, start with one little piece of it. Maybe I'll set a timer for 15 minutes and work through something. And then after the timer bangs, maybe you keep going, right? I do the same thing when I'm writing. I'll set a timer and it forces you to at least put words on paper. So I think those couple of things have really helped me when I'm feeling that overwhelmed feeling of what do you do next?
Go ahead, Precious.
So in transitioning, albeit this transition kind of happened, it wasn't anything that you initiated, but you were prepared to an extent for this. I mean, you didn't wake up that day and become a writer. So my question for you is, how did you navigate going from being a corporate employee with a set base salary and a budget that you could depend on to being freelance and having to hunt without any sort of floor in terms of, what you're going to take home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good question. When I was working full time, I would worry a lot about money and my budget, and I would do what we all do when we become adults, and you make the budget and you're like, okay, here's the income, here's the expenses, here's the rent, the mortgage, the car, the, whatever, the groceries, maybe Netflix, the things that we want to do. When I was working, though, I always knew that, I would probably get a bonus every year, although I didn't know how much. And I might get a raise every year, although at the end when I was working there, we got raises annually. So that's great. But I couldn't increase the asset side of the balance sheet, right? So I had liabilities, whatever, you can try to cut that back and, my Starbucks habit or whatever, things that you can remove. But I couldn't do a whole lot on the asset side. To change that. I was salaried, no OT, whatever. So after getting laid off, it was terrifying. And I didn't know how that was going to work out. I talked to a guy who worked for my company, and he did placement for people after they got laid off to try to help you find another job. And he was like, ooh, you're going to go on your own. You're going to start your company. I don't know, it can take you up to a year to replace your full-time income, and just things that sound scary. And I'm like, okay, that sounds scary. Okay, I don't know, and on top of that, with the relocation, it costs money to move, right? And none of this was cheap. So I luckily had the severance. I had the sale of the house. So I had some, savings and things like that to float for a minute. So I wasn't, horrified about what I was going to eat. Although it was more often ramen than steak. But once I started working for myself and building up clients, over that first year, I realized that there's so much opportunity out there. There's so many different ways to make money. And when I first moved to Florida, I was walking dogs a lot because I love dogs, and I didn't want to like work somewhere full time, and I wanted to get out and explore the city and stuff like that. So it was a nice fit while I was also building up the other business, certainly not taking home a whole lot of money, but having, a great time, and then networking, meeting clients, writing more, figuring out how to kind of do that. And the business kind of just kept building on itself, and once you kind of start doing things, you build momentum and things go further and further. And I really do feel like there's a ton of opportunity right now in our industry for people to do things in different ways. Like, we know all about the talent gap and the great resignation that's happening, and that's absolutely hitting our industry. Maybe you're feeling it at your carriers. I see so many openings in different ways. But then you also have this shift where we have tech companies, right? So there's insurtechs that are looking for people that know insurance, right? To kind of work in between. There's all these companies that need BAs, business analysts, to help drive that shift in technology when companies are replacing their legacy systems or just trying to improve their technology offerings. Sorry, the cat's walking back and forth on me. So I think there's just so much more opportunity than what I realized. And you're right, you have to keep producing every single day. But like, honestly, it occurred to me that's not really that different than at work, in my corporate job. I had to keep producing every day, and I had less control. So, while I don't have that security of somebody else writing the check, I feel like I have more control over how I earn money, what I make, what I bill, who I work for, the type of work that I do, the projects that I take on. And it's kind of exciting right now.
I would say, and Precious, you can echo this or correct it. Both Precious and I kind of like sitting as agency owners, having left brokerages and other outfits that kind of gave you a role, right? Like, and that was your role, like that was your day to day. Some of that mental hurdle is, like you said, like, oh God, like how am I going to make money? And you'll find out that there's like other stuff that you'll end up doing. Like, there's other skill sets that you have to acquire, that you have to practice better than you've been given the opportunity in the past. Because if you were a role player, that was strictly what they wanted from you, right? Like, they wanted you to be the best you could be at whatever it was, sales, service, claims, whatever it is. But you come to find out that, like, typically when you go out on your own, if you're kind of keeping somewhat of the same skill set and just translating it to this, like, new world that you're moving to, a lot of the day-to-day activity isn't that much different. There's a handful of it that is different, because, like, say you've never done your own books before and accounting, and if you have to worry about the HR stuff with, which Precious has freaking nailed down. But a lot of the bulk of what you're going to be doing, if you are moving into something that you are porting that skill set into, is going to be similar to what you were doing, most every day as a role player. You just don't have that safety net, so to speak, right? And there's always kind of like a trade-off that happens. Am I wrong with that, Precious? Did you have a similar kind of experience, kind of moving out on your own?
Yeah, I think that, and I love the way, Abby, that you addressed it, that there was a net, but then there was also a ceiling, and there wasn't much in between there, that you can do. Now, granted, in the agent broker world, where there might be like a commission component, then, there was still some upside, if you were really just, getting after it and slaying goals, but it was still, when you venture out, and I think Matt and I had this discussion several episodes back, maybe on the previous iteration, about people ask you, oh man, now that you're your own boss, so you can just do whatever you want to do, right? And it's like, no, I'm self-employed, meaning that same stellar employee that I used to be for someone else, I now have to show up for me. And continue to do all those things, continue to be, disciplined and present and effective, and all that stuff still has to, come to play now. However, I say that, but also you have to follow Abby on like Instagram. because I see all these fabulous pictures of sunrises, sunsets, coffee shops, and I'm super jelly because I'm just like, wait, hold on. I'm still putting in hours, keyboard monitor hours, and she's out there, finding her muse in a pelican. And I'm like, I don't.
I love the pelicans so much. I didn't know we would have so many pelicans in Tampa.
So similar experience, not so much. Hers is the Hollywood version. I just got log onto my laptop instead of the company computer. So
it's all a balance, right? Or an integration, which I love, being able to kind of like doing creative work with writing, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's like I can set up my day the way that it works well for me and my schedule. And I love having that flexibility.
So I know Heather is working on a passion project that includes writing. Maybe you just need to take like 6 weeks and go to Tampa and bang it out, Heather.
Oh, nice.
That sounds like a plan.
Writing workshop.
And maybe I should have done that like a month or two ago when, we have like 18 inches of snow up here. And
100%. Yes. All right. You're the change management person, Heather, amongst the three of us regulars here. I don't know what you got from the change management standpoint, but I bet it's a lot deeper than the questions I'm asking.
Yeah. And Abby, I know that you are heavily into the change management space, and you really understand all of the theories that are behind it. You've got your Kubler-Ross, you've got you've got all of your developed theories, but I know that you have a little bit of a different take on the processing of change. And if you could just share just a bit about that. Don't tell everybody everything that's out there in your book, but because we definitely want people to pick it up. But what are some of the things that kind of differ in your theory from some of the the standards that are out there with change management?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think there are so many change management theories, and so many of them are great. But when I was researching for my book and writing it, I kind of felt like some of the theories out there weren't as applicable for my situation, and I felt like nothing really was hitting it for me. So I kind of created my own change management model. It's called the LEAP change management model, which goes with my book, right? Which is called Life After Leaping In. It's a little theme, and the idea is that you can go through this model and spend as much time as you need on the different phases of it. And you can kind of move back and forth. It's really flexible. So, if you go through the L to the E and you realize you need to go back to the L, that's okay. It really doesn't lock you in, which I think is really great with a change management model, because when it comes down to it, we're all people, and we all need to realize that the way that we experience change will be different from each other. And the way that you experience change in yourself will be different over time. So maybe something that, a change you're going through today, if you had gone through it a year ago, it might have been a complete crisis. But now, certainly after 2 years of COVID, we're all like much more adaptable, right? So going through a big change now might feel a lot different than it might have in the past for you. So that's part of what my model promotes, is that idea of kind of flexibility, learning as much as you can when you're going into it and going through it. I think for people, we feel more comfortable the more we know about something. So it's that kind of spending as much time as you need up front to get comfortable with the change or with the decision to make a change can do so much to make the whole process much easier for you. And that's kind of what I was saying in the beginning when you were asking what drove me to make that big change. It's, you get to that point where you kind of have to go forward with it. And I had put all that time and that energy into thinking about it and the research and the learning part, that when I made the decision to change, it all kind of happened quickly because I was ready at that point. So I think that's an important takeaway from the book and from my model.
I can speak from I won't even speak from personal experience. I'll speak from kind of like who I've seen be successful at making large changes like this. Yourself and Heather and Precious included in here, is the people that are successful are the ones that measure twice and cut once, right? They're the ones that, like, my next question was going to be, and I just remember, like, it just reminded me that it would be like a self-defeating question. It would be like, okay, well, how the heck do you figure out what you want to do, right? Like, say you've identified the fact that you don't necessarily love being in your current position. Hopefully my mic didn't kick off again here. But so hopefully you've identified that you want to make a change. And the question is, okay, well, where are you going next? Well, that's where that research and preparation phase comes in big time. Because if you don't look for something, or if you just become enamored with a shiny object, typically you're not going to be successful at that, because you're jumping in with no prep work. You don't know the ramifications of what you're doing, and maybe your skill set needs to be attuned in a little bit of a different way. And if you don't have that yet, you're probably not going to be able to perform at that all-star level that you need to in order to be, out on your own or running your own organization or something like that. So that was something that really kind of jumped out at me, is the people that are the most successful at doing this are doing a lot of that study work ahead of time. So let me ask you a kind of more of a like a touchy-feely question. I know that like making a large change in your mindset when it comes to, you're talking about kind of like doing the assets and the liabilities and that kind of breakdown. Your mindset kind of changes from, what can I purchase with this flow of income, to what do I need in order to make my dream happen, right? And a lot of times you find out that those two sets of things have only a little bit of crossover. They don't have like a ridiculous amount of crossover. And so there are some things that you have to get rid of, right, in your life. And I just wanted to ask you, what are one or two of those things that you had to kind of at least hit the pause button on, or kind of remove from your lifestyle pre-making this change, that kind of like really hit home, right? Like it was, one or two of those things where like, oh man, like I really want to hold on to this, but I very much love this dream more than, I need to kind of hold on to these one or two kind of comforts.
Yeah. Buying shoes. And I wasn't kidding about the Starbucks habit. I'm brewing my own CPCU mug.
Oh, represent.
Just just stupid shopping, yeah, like mindless shopping, the throwing things in Target cart mindlessly. I still do it, and then pull them back out of the cart. Like, no, you probably don't need that $5 dollar spot item every time. And it's funny because what I realized, like more than anything, when I came here and I told you I was walking dogs, like you don't make a lot of money. It's super fun. I love the dogs, but it's not like, oh, this is going to like earn me thousands of dollars. But what does happen is that you realize very quickly that the cumulative effect adds up very quickly. So, me going and walking one dog isn't going to like change anything, but, doing 10 dogs does, right? And so when you realize that you're like, okay, I don't feel like doing this one thing, but the amount that it adds up over time, that cumulative effect is really, really cool. Like there's there's a meme out there about like, if you just do 1% more every day, or like if you get 1% better every day, like at the end of the year, what have you gained? You know what I mean? Like that's amazing. That's like an amazing amount of effort and amazing gain. But when you do it in like those little increments, it doesn't feel like you're doing much. So like it didn't feel like, oh, this one, dog walk, or that one article that I'm writing or whatever. But it taught me how those things can add up. So when I started like getting more writing clients and realizing I could, set my rates, I could charge what I wanted, I could charge more, I could kind of play around with that, and realize, okay, how that relates to the amount of effort and what you make per hour and what you want to earn per week. And you can relate that to, okay, I need to write X amount of articles to pay the rent and the car note. And then, you've got that left over. And, when you remove some of the unnecessary expenses, like the shoes, which I didn't need because with COVID, you don't go anywhere anyway. I just wore flip-flops. You didn't need them, right? So it's fine, but now I don't even, who knows? I probably can't even walk in heels. Rims will be interesting, but all those different just like ways that you look at the world, it's crazy. And it's been so cool. So I think that's interesting.
Well, I hope one day you feel secure and successful enough to get that monkey back on your back so that you can get some, get those Jimmy Choos or whatever your footwear of choice is.
I love the Jimmy Choos. Matt, I do.
Thanks for bringing that up, Matt.
Thank you. Nice memories. I'll just go hug the pairs in the closet. It's fine. No.
I gotta tell you, shoes ain't my thing. I wear the same pair of New Balance cross trainers. I buy like one every 6 months off of Amazon. That's the extent of my new shoeness.
Awesome. But we all have our things, right? To your point, there's something that you can cut out. Yeah,
there's most definitely some vices that are a big money sink on my part. All right, Precious, go ahead.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think that, traditionally our industry, we're very conservative. And so the thought of just completely reinventing yourself, is terrifying, to a lot of people. Now change is happening so rapidly, but for those who may be, there's in the insurance industry, we tend to get typecasted. Everyone kind of hails under a different banner. I'm a claims person, I'm an underwriter, I'm a broker, whatever it is, that banner, that badge that we've held for so long. And as CPCUs, the advantage that we have is that in order to become a CPCU, we had to be exposed and understand different facets of our industry. So I would argue that we're probably best positioned to transition if we wanted to, because we held all of these pieces to the puzzle. But for anyone, not necessarily the leap into like solopreneurship or entrepreneurship, but even changing, what advice do you have for someone? So it's a little bit different than the question that Matt has. I'm not asking you to solve like, how do I figure out what I want to do? But if I feel the need and the desire to change, what is step one? What would you suggest someone do to kind of embrace that urge?
Yeah, definitely. I think that one thing to keep in mind is that change doesn't have to be permanent, right? So we can make a change and take a risk, and you can fail, and that's okay. And it doesn't have to be forever. The other thing that I learned about change is that if you're trying to make a choice between 2 or 3 options, and you really can't figure out which way to go with it, it's reassuring to know that whichever option you pick, it's not going to be an awful option, right? It's probably pretty good. We get kind of stuck in our minds thinking this is all or nothing, right? That black and white thinking, when really there's this whole big gray area in between where we can make the most of things. We can continue to change. Maybe you change positions and you take like a lateral move or something in your company because you need that breadth of experience to then move up. And you realize that it really sucks and you just love that new position. Most companies want you to stay a year, but what is it that you can do in that year that makes it acceptable for you while you're looking for that next role, right? I mean, and maybe if it's truly not tenable, there's another company that you can switch to. I think what's really interesting is when I started my career, one thing that was kind of like hammered in from maybe my parents' generation, maybe, mentors that I had when I started, it's kind of that idea of putting in your time, that loyalty to a company, that you need to kind of stay in a role for a long time and get experience and do those things. And that traditional wisdom isn't the wisdom any longer. People are changing companies, changing roles quickly, and realizing that is a way that you can get ahead and get that experience and just kind of move much faster in life and figure out like what it is that you love and that you do want to do every single day. For me, it kind of hit home when I realized that there isn't that loyalty with a company any longer, right? So like you might work for someone and think, okay, this is going really good, I want to stay here, but that choice isn't always yours. So while you're trying to figure out what to do and you're making these decisions, when I first left, I thought that my business was going to be completely different than it is now. I thought I was going to be consulting and doing just different types of work. And I do very little of that now. My work is really writing, and that's where the focus of my job is. But I love it. And so it's kind of evolved, and I think it will just kind of keep evolving over time. And that part I think is really cool. So when you're trying to figure out what change to make, know that you're not going to make the wrong choice. So you can go into something and maybe it isn't the best for you. Maybe you're going to fail, but you're going to learn something from that. So fail fast and find the lesson and move forward and figure out what to do after that, right? Life is just a series of changes, whether we look at it that way or not. So you might as well keep leaping in.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And it's all building towards something, right? Like just because you're the most recent change didn't work out the way you thought it was going to, doesn't mean that didn't allow you to acquire a connection or a skill set or something like that that's not going to help you later on, right?
Yep, exactly. Absolutely. And life kind of keeps moving in those ways. And if you sit back and look back at it, would you change it? Like those things that have happened to you to get you to the point where you are now. You know what I mean? You probably wouldn't, right? We're pretty happy with who we are and we kind of keep moving forward. So if you can step back and in the middle of a big change, it's not easy to do that. I know that. But if we can step back and kind of look at it that way, I think that helps.
Awesome. All right, Heather, would you like to kick us off with the first of our 3 questions that we ask all of our guests? I'll give you the choice. You can pick any of the 3. And just Abby, if you haven't seen the show before, these are kind of get to know you questions. They're not gotcha questions or anything like that. This is meant to give some human feel here, some humanizing background to the people that we speak with. So I know that we're not trying to get you to divulge some crazy secret or something like that. So I'll leave it up to you, Heather. Which one do you want to start off with?
Well, since this is the CPCU Champion Hour, I will take the one that we like to give all of our guests an opportunity to be able to give a shout out to someone who has been a champion within your life, whether that person is a CPCU or not a CPCU, and why is that person been a champion to your life?
Gosh, that's hard. I could name so many. Probably I'll just go with my best CPCU girlfriend circle. So that's Ramya Sunat, Elaine George, and Denise Brown. So I know you all know those ladies. And really, I think for me, it just having a group of people that support you any damn thing you do, it's amazing, and I don't know that I've had that at different points in my life, when you're in school, when you're a kid, it's easy to make friends, and in college and undergrad or whatever, there's so many people around and you have roommates and stuff like that. And then when you're an adult, it's kind of harder sometimes to make friends. So I think when you do have that circle of people that love you and support you and kind of amplify the things you do and kind of point you in the right direction when maybe you're not going kind of in the right way, the people that realize the best parts about you. So yeah, those would be those girls.
Awesome. All right, Precious, which one of the 2 remaining do you want to hit her with?
All right. So you are, first of all, just an inspiration to so many of us who are, kind of doing that self-evaluation and figuring things out. And so you, in your ongoing development, because that's one thing that we find is kind of the common thread here, that we're all lifelong learners. What is the thing that you are working on right now, or it doesn't even have to be professional related? What are you reading? What are you binge watching? What has got your attention right now?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's tricky. World events, honestly, which right now is a challenge. But on a lighter note, one of my passions my whole life has been riding horses. And when I relocated down here, it was tricky just to kind of figure out how to do that and where to go and stuff. And then I did find a barn I was riding out, and I had a little accident, and I like messed up my knee in a not a fun way with some like ligament stuff, and like not yeah, it was painful. And that just took a long time to recover from. So anyway, I'm kind of like just going back to basics with like reading about like classical horse theory. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of like the way that you train horses and work with them and develop them. It's really, really interesting. So I've kind of gotten back into reading about that history, which comes from wartime. So it's like a German-based history of like how we train horses to support the cavalry. And it's really very, very cool. So that's what I've been kind of nerding out on.
That is super interesting. I love that you went in that direction, because everyone kind of has like a very unique take, and that is most definitely in that vein as well. I love it. Okay, Heather and Precious did me a service. I get to ask the super fun question, at least in my opinion. All right, so if a movie was to be made of your life, what genre would that film be, and who would you choose to be the actor, actress to play you in that role?
Oh boy. I think that it should I think it should be a comedy.
It's always good to laugh.
I think it should be a comedy. And the only famous person that anybody's ever told me I looked like was Alicia Silverstone. So I picked her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
A Clueless reboot, or
I love. Yeah, love. Yeah. Big fan.
So just really nerdy movie history background. Clueless is based off of now that I prefaced it, I'm going to screw it up. I believe it's Much Ado About Nothing, right? Isn't that what Clueless is? It's either Pride and Prejudice or Much Ado About Nothing. Clueless is based off of a Shakespearean play, believe it or not, with as much zany antics as take place in that movie. But yeah, so that is an awesome response. I love it. I'm obviously a big Alicia Silverstone fan from back in the 90s, watching movies and stuff like that. So that would be an awesome flick. All right, Heather, Precious, I'll give you last ups before we say goodbye to Abi.
No, I think Abi, you once again are definitely an inspiration to the entire CPCU community, and I would just tag in to say what Precious was talking about. You know, a lot of times, even if you're not going solo or out there in the entrepreneur world, we do feel that we get typecast in insurance, and I would say you are an encouragement to everyone to not fit that mold of being typecast in the industry. So thank you very much for taking that leap that you did, because your passion and your ability to be able to navigate that is a model for anyone.
Thank you, Heather.
So I, first of all, want to acknowledge and thank you for being so gracious with your time in Orlando. So I found Abi like during one of the happy hour-ish gatherings. Grabbed a table, sat down, kind of shared with her what I was, working through. She shared with me, some tips and some, encouragement. Bought the book, right? So I have my signed copy, the Sharpie and all, on my bookshelf. And so I just encourage anyone that, take her up on these offers. She's told you where she's going to be. If you haven't had the pleasure yet of connecting with her, following her, her content is amazing. Her articles are just spot on, especially the ones that she does to cover the CPCU events. So really appreciate that. And even the publication committee, I think that is a huge opportunity that we don't talk about, that, this is an opportunity to contribute and be part of a publication that is distributed amongst the entire society. And so I know that, the request to send in content and to Abi's point, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Put something together, because we all have that unique voice, experience, perspective on industry things. And that is what I look forward to whenever I open up like insights, is seeing all the different contributors, the ones that I know, the vast, topics out there. So shameless plug for publications, but I think that's something that even aspiring writers, articles, I know Heather, writes articles too. Articles are a great place to start to kind of, hone your skill and see if that's something that allows you to have that passion. So again, thank you for leading, with that, and just continuing to inspire.
Thank you so much. I loved our time in Orlando.
Let me echo that. Abby is always forthcoming with, especially if you meet Abby at one of these events. She, as well as, that whole crew of just super women that she mentioned, are freaking rock stars in so many different ways. But I want to say thank you as well, Abby. I know, your time as an entrepreneur is valuable, right? I mean, every second is an opportunity as an entrepreneur and someone who's out on your own. So I want to say thank you for, taking this, 45 minutes, an hour with us to kind of sit down and hopefully help others. I am going to throw the book up one more time. I can't stress this enough. If you can't make it to an event with Abby to get your pink Sharpie signed copy, definitely order it online from Amazon. It's like $14. You can also get it for free, Kindle Unlimited. So again, we don't get any kickbacks from Kindle or Amazon or anything like that, but we do want to help Abby out. So if you are a Kindle Unlimited member, you can download her ebook for free on Kindle Unlimited. Any final thoughts from you, Abby? Anything else that you want to kind of impart to the audience before we say goodbye?
Nope, just that it was my absolute pleasure to be here, and I thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to spend time with you guys all in person.
Awesome. Yep, can't wait to see you. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Abby. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All of us talk about like whatever your target is, right? Like, what's your target? Like, whether it's to work at a specific company or in a specific sector within the industry or something like that. She like lives it, man. She like got up and left New York and went to Florida because that's where she wanted to be, and that's where she wanted to kind of target the companies and the businesses, and also be kind of somewhat located in that region in order to kind of do what she's doing. Not to mention the fact, make us all jealous with pictures every single day of Tampa. Though I did hear, Tampa's had some cold weather as of late. So, karma, like it does come around every so often, just saying. But that being said, I love interviewing Abby because she is genuine and just kind of like talks from the heart whenever she's talking about any subject that she either leads a session on or does an interview about. The one thing that really sticks out is that reinvention process. And so all three of us have gone through at least some level of reinvention over the last couple of years, along with, masses of other people, especially in the insurance industry. How has that really gone for you guys? I mean, like I can tell my own little personal story, and I'm actually still kind of reinventing as I go right now in real time. But what does that look like for you, Heather? I think you've definitely had some kind of new things that you've been involved with. Maybe some things have kind of like fallen off, or you've selectively kind of de-emphasized. What does it look like for you to kind of like reinvent over the last couple of years?
Well, it's been more than the past couple of years. I've had a reinvention cycle for about 4.5 to 5 years now. Having changed jobs. Seven times, 7 different roles.
Wow.
In 4.5 years. And some of those were by choice. Some of those were not by choice. So it's always very different when it's not something that you're making the leap for. I've moved twice too in that time period as well. And the first move was by choice. The second move was because I had to take a leap and say I was going to get out of the area that I was working in and go into something completely different. It has been a process. I do say that each successive change or reinvention, it gets a little easier because I've got this muscle that has started to build up for resilience purposes around the process of going through those types of changes, and I will say that I heard a speaker at our I Day that we had last year, and she was incredible, absolutely incredible. I don't know if you know or if you want to check her out. She has a lot of YouTube. She's got a channel out there. Her name is Meg Johnson. Meg Johnson's story is it just insane. Okay, she was hiking in Utah and with her boyfriend and thought that she was jumping from one rock to another, and she ended up leaping off the side of the rock formations, and she fell like 40 feet and broke like almost everything in her back and arms and all of that. Of course, paralyzed now, quadriplegic. Okay, and her life just went from she was an active, outgoing, everything was just going her way in her life. And it went from that to like she wasn't sure if she was going to make it in the world. And she had to recover from all of that. Really sad part about it, she lost, her boyfriend just like left her whenever, she broke her back. But she reconnected with somebody else who she had known from college in her life and is now married to. She has two kids and is pregnant with her third child as well. And like I said, I listen to her story because it really helps you to understand that it's all about your perspective and your mindset that you put yourself in whenever you go through these life altering changes. And and not to compare my any of my situation at all to what Meg had gone through, because it's not about who's got it worse than me so I can feel better about the situation. But I love stories of resilience like that, and the story that she tells is that we all go through like a metamorphosis that happens to us whenever we're in this reinvention process. We were caterpillars at one point, and then we got stuck in this cocoon. And then when you emerge from that, you're a butterfly. But butterflies don't fly immediately and can't fly immediately when you emerge out of the cocoon. Your wings are all wet and soppy with a bunch of goo from the cocoon, and you're going to flop around and stumble around a lot. That's okay. Getting comfortable with that wet wing and that wet floppy wing moment in your life is the most empowering thing that you can do for yourself when you're going through those moments of reinvention and refiguring out like what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to move forward. So absolutely 100% recommend tuning in to what Meg has to talk about, because she will help you to like process and digest through those types of things. And I had never thought about that from that perspective before.
Wow, Heather going deep.
Yeah, I didn't come behind that. I'm just in awe. I'm fighting tears. That's amazing.
No, I that is fantastic. I love the imagery because whether it's reinvention or adapting or something, like there's always everyone always wants to fast forward to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like it seems like a really rote kind of thing to say, or just like an old kind of thing that like your parents say and you're like whatever, and then you get older and you're like holy crap, they were right. It's the journey that really makes that wherever you end up or wherever you're headed, at least if you want to look at it from the perspective of you never really get there, right? Like there's no finish line. It's a direction, right? Like that journey aspect of it is really important. In fact, most people would say it's the reason why you go through it. It's not just like some fictitious endpoint at the end that you reach or something. So I love the imagery there too, because so many people want to fast forward past the cocoon part and the wet, what did you say, the wet goopy
the wet
wing
goopy
part?
wings when you're trying to dry out your wings. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They just want to get straight to flight, and you're like, whoa, hold on, like you got to go through the growing pains and the transition points in order to get there. I love that. What about you, Precious? What's the last couple of years looked like for you, or last 9.5 months? I mean, it's been a whirlwind for you.
The only constant is change, but I love that insight that Heather shared, I'm still like in my mind, like envisioning this butterfly. And I think about how much time when we've stepped out, when we've taken a leap, that first time you hit a little bit of resistance, you wish you could like crawl back into the cocoon. You wish you can like go back to those comfortable, safe places. I remember I saw a saying that said, a boat is safest in the harbor, but that's not what it's built for, and in that butterfly phase, you're done munching leaves with your other caterpillar friends, right? When you get there, now you've got butterfly problems. And you've got to figure that out. And there is no going back. And I think that's how, to kind of sum up from a professional standpoint, life has turned out. It's all about rediscovering the core, that why, that first love. Like, what is it about this why did I get into this? And making sure that is the pillar of everything else, that you build. And so as I've gone through changes in jobs, companies, roles, one of the things that I recognized is that when I was stationary, I looked at this cube and I thought it was a square, because from my perspective, that's all that I saw. And every time I moved, I got to see it from a slightly different angle. And so some positions took me to the left, to the right, above, slightly below, until I recognized that what I was looking at was a three-dimensional thing. And that thing was my career, that even though I'd been in a position, I wasn't typecasted. That wasn't the extent of my ability. And so finding that sweet spot where, my drive and my passion met my ability is really where I've been able to, spread these proverbial wings, right? Now I can show it fully, and now I can talk about these experiences. And sometimes, to Heather's point, when you're pushed out there, I imagine like, the kid on the playground, you're climbing the slide, right? And then you get up to the top because that's what you've been pushing towards. And all of a sudden you're looking down and it's a lot steeper than you thought it was from the ground. And you're having second thoughts about, oh, is this really what I was, I got so used to climbing. I got so used to building. I almost forgot there was like a top, right? And so you're at the top of this slide and your second thoughts are convincing you to go down, but there is no going down the ladder. There's a line. So if you've ever been on a playground, I've been to some rough playgrounds, y'all. You got two choices at this point, right? You're either going to sit down and you're going to go, or some impatient classmate is going to push you and you're going to go. Either way, you're going to go. And so defining before you climb what success looks like for you. Because I received some sage advice during some of these journeys about being very intentional about where I'm headed and making sure that everything that I do adds to that destination. It doesn't detour me somewhere, because it's like going to the store and I have it in my mind that I'm cooking something in particular, but then I was like, ooh, I like that. And then all of a sudden you filled your basket with things and you didn't even get what you came for. And so as you're in this supermarket of insurance, and there's so many bins and baskets and opportunities, don't chase the money. I guess that's the biggest thing that I'll tell anybody, because if you find what you were designed to do, then the money finds you. It honestly does. But yeah, you have to be intentional, and you have to recognize that my dish, my vision for what I want on my table doesn't have to match yours, and that's okay. That's not saying that one is better or less than, but I know what I want and what I need and what I was designed for. And so it's really about that selective, stretching yourself, because sometimes it is scary to get out there, but we have the foundation. It's like a Swiss Army knife, right? And so you've been in underwriting your whole career. That's fine. If an opportunity comes up and it happens to be in claims or a business analyst or something like that, I guess my takeaway is not to shy away from those things, because you might discover your new favorite thing that you've not already done, but is completely within your wheelhouse to conquer. Because the fact that we even went through the CPCU process means that we have that tenacity. We have that ability to learn, and it didn't stop when we, attended conferment. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaways on the rediscovery. It doesn't have to be completely from scratch. You can build on the foundation that you started, but then pivot and take it in a different direction, because there's no failing. It's all experience, and you can decide, again, you're operating this ship that's in that harbor. So when you get out in those open waters, you get to chart your own path forward.
Yeah, I was I was buying a very late birthday gift for my wife, like as in the day of, and I'm in one of these kind of like gift shops, and they have like the inspirational wall hangers, like, or like, desktop kind of signs and stuff like that. And one of them, again, it's like one of these like old school things that you hear a lot, and it doesn't really ring true until like you actually kind of figure out what it actually means. You always kind of take it for granted until you actually understand it. Was I never fail. I either win or I learn. Right. I love that aspect of it, because people who reinvent themselves continually, or at least they do it, more than just once. They embody that, right? Like, and that reinvention that you envision, you might not end up in that final state that you think you're going to end up right at the beginning of that process. It's this kind of like, you're bumping around as you go. The one thing that you made me think of as well, Precious, was I think a lot of people, and this isn't just in the insurance industry, a lot of people get hung up on the title, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm this title or I'm that title. I think people that are more likely to be successful are the ones that are more interested in, what will I learn in this position, right? Like, what skill will I either, find or develop or hone in this position? And they might not necessarily know how that's going to contribute to the next stop along the way, right? The next title that they'll be given. But I think a lot of us really, I might be kind of like, talking for people, and I really shouldn't be, but I've definitely come across enough people where the title was really important. And I get it, like it's a recognition thing. But at the same time, like if you're looking at it from the perspective of where you are versus where you're headed, the title that you have now, or even the next title that you have, isn't the last stop. So it shouldn't be one of those things that stops you from acquiring the skill set that you can acquire or hone in that, in that role that you find yourself in. And the greatest example of that is a lot of these kind of like thinkers that are out there that are talking kind of like out of the box in terms of what does it all mean, and like, the Simon Sinek's of the world and the Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world. They talk about like, whatever you want to do as a job in the future, like if you would do it for pay, you care about it enough to do it for free. So if you have no skills doing it, like offer to do it for free at the beginning, because then you're going to develop the skills to be able to do it for pay later on. And that paltry salary of zero or some intern stipend or something like that really easily ends up turning into a much, much larger number at the end, because it doesn't really have anything to do with where you started. It has to do with where you ended up finishing, and, kind of that skill set that you collected along the line, and a lot of people in the insurance industry, either outside the insurance industry, they're like, I don't want to get involved in that because I don't want to be stuck in insurance. Look, you're going to learn skills in the insurance industry that translate everywhere. And for those people that are in the insurance industry, you're going to learn skills in the insurance industry that will help you translate other places in the insurance industry or out of it. Not that we want you to leave, but there's always that possibility. And the world's definitely changing in that direction, where, it's really the skills that are becoming more important. It's not, the title, or even like, the name of the school on the piece of paper. Those things are becoming de-emphasized. And what's really important is, the work product and what you can actually do and execute on. So, I'm really interested to kind of like keep seeing where this goes. I don't know if you guys are thinking of like any next steps. I can tell you my next step right now that my wife and I are entertaining is our actual physical location. New Jersey may or may not be where we are for the distant future. And in fact, we're looking at a couple of states, one of which being New Hampshire, where I will be buried in 9 billion feet of snow if we end up going. But she promised me I could get a snowmobile. So there's that. So we are kind of looking at like, that next step. And that all comes with, what does the employment situation look like, and what does the position and whether that translates into a new office for the agency or a new role somewhere else or whatever it looks like. There's so much wrapped up in that. So yeah, there's so many moving parts. Do you guys have anything on the horizon that you can kind of like spoiler, be like, I'm looking at doing this? Like, what do you guys have working?
Well, I have this book that I've been trying to write for a really long time. And I finally have an outline. There's a group of us CPCUs that get together on a regular basis. It's generally monthly, and and Abby is one of them because she's the inspiration to all of us that have not stepped already out there into that published world. But writing is a passion of mine, and I know that's what I'm really meant to be and meant to do, because my soul opens up when I'm writing, and I feel like I'm alive really alive when I'm pouring words into something. So that, when you, like you said, follow that trail where it's going to take you. But there's a there's a lot of reinventing what you think it is that you need to do on that path as well. You have to almost be prepared to shift and adjust, because I thought totally like, I'm going to do the book about this and this direction. This is what I'm going to do. And then there was just something that just kept coming to me, that this is what you can write about. And Matt, you touched on it a little bit when you started talking about titles, because I really feel that the way that jobs are changing today, and the way that our industry especially is changing today, being a leader doesn't always mean that you manage people anymore. Being a leader means something that you embody wherever you are, and that you carry that in whatever that you do. And that's how I think our industry is changing for the better, because it's not about that top down hierarchical structure anymore. You can have influence at all levels and all titles in an organization, but you've got to be willing to get out there and grab it, and demonstrate that you are leading from where you are. So that's my little spoiler alert. That's what I'm working on. I have my whole outline of all my chapters and everything, and some content in it going. And like I said, Abby's been a great inspiration. Mike Caselny as well has been a fantastic, and Rita Williams-Boger. We're all writers, so I gain a lot of energy from how passionate that they are about this too, as well.
I love that. Wait, got any next steps there? I know you're just turning and burning. Premium, man. We need premium on the books.
I just want to say, first of all, I'm so excited for you, Heather. I mean, every time I read an article, a piece that I wouldn't even use the word like write, like you curate, it's an out of body experience. You really can you feel the words. And so it's so exciting to watch you lean into that and really embrace that. And so like, I want to be like on the pre-release list. When you're ready,
you both get some of the first signed copies. I'm telling you.
I've actually dedicated a bookshelf as I was setting up my new office space that are either signed copies of books, mostly from CPCUs, gifts that I've received from fellow CPCUs. So I know when I was having kind of a rough patch, Heather actually sent me a couple books, so it made it onto the shelf. So now I just gotta like save space for your actual books. But no, as far as the professional endeavors, one of the epiphanies that I've had in the past couple of years is that early in my career, my employer was kind of the headliner and I was the small font, right? So it was precious of whatever company I worked for, whoever I represented. But the more I started to understand that I am my own brand, that, myself as a professional, regardless of what project I'm associated with, who I work for, whatever else is tied to me, that making sure that I'm seen and valued and get opportunities are in line with what I want my name to be synonymous with. And so I think a lot about that. What conversations do I want my peers to bring me up in? What are the sort of things that when you hear it, that a light bulb goes off, you're like, Precious is the perfect one for that. She would be interested in that. She would be an asset to that. And so now I've gone into this manifesting, right? And I'm like, okay, so that's what I want to be. What am I doing that's in line with that? So getting over myself. I share this with a couple of friends, and no one ever believes it when I say it, but I'll say it again for the sake of this show. As much as I do with you guys and speaking, I can't stand to listen to the sound of my voice. Like I can't go back and re-listen to anything that I've done. I don't even like to rewatch things that I've done. I put it out there and then I have to walk away because I'm hypercritical of myself, always have been. So that's one of those things that I'm working on. But getting it, like you were saying, that muscle memory, that muscle that you build up, that stamina, you just have to tackle that, head on. And so when I really embrace that I have a unique story to tell, and that story has value, and there's merit to that, and that by not opening my mouth because of my own insecurities, I'm potentially depriving someone else of something that might be inspirational, or at least I hope. So yeah, that's kind of more of what I'm adding to. I'm kind of adding to the portfolio of places where I show up, causes I support, so that I can give someone who, I want to be the change that I could have used, several years prior in my career. Not to say anything was regrettable or a mistake, but just thinking through what is my legacy, like long term, because the money is great. I've been able to raise a family. I've been able to support a household. But what do I really want my career to represent when everything's said and done? So maybe it's the gray hair. I don't know. I'm kind of in legacy mindset now. Not ready to retire, but just doing things that last.
Yeah, and the world will be better off with more Precious. Wherever you can show up, more places. I think the old Boy Scout motto, leave the place better than you found it, I think will be completely true in that respect. So, any final thoughts, Heather?
I would just say, if I have learned anything through the reinvention process, is that you should never gaslight yourself into believing that you can't. Because I can tell you, Precious, I get that. I have experienced those moments where it was like, yeah, nope, just nope, can't. But brain is shutting down, not going to be able to do this. I cannot put another foot forward in what's happening right now. And somehow you figure out how to do that, despite your wet, soppy wings and despite, not really understanding who you are and what you're supposed to be doing next. So don't put yourself in that place where you're telling yourself that you can't, because you can. You've got to flip that switch in your brain and turn that imposter off that's telling you that you can't.
I don't know if it would look too good on a t-shirt, but embrace your wet soppy wings. I think it's a good tagline. It's a good tagline.
Yeah, maybe it's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing. And it's not frou-frou. I like it. It's like cuts right to it. I love it. Help our efforts. Help us with getting this message out there, and getting Precious out there more, so that she can be more critical of herself and not listen to herself more often, by liking, comment, subscribing, sharing, hitting the notification bell. On the channel, we are like at 120 subs right now. We got thousands of CPCUs in this society, man. Hit the sub button. Like, if you're not subbed, you're like, we got issues. We're going to be talking at some of these next events. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Help us out, and look for more of this content in the future. So with that, we got another episode in the can. And you know what? With all you people out there, all you amazing CPCU champions, go reinvent yourself every day. Work hard, and you will be surprised with where you end up, and probably happily so. So with that, that's our final thought. Peace, CPCUs.
I think these videos are brilliant, and I'm sure you will like them too. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification bell.